Welcome to Trailblazers in Conveyancing, Women Under 40 Shaping the Future, part of National Conveyancing Week. Hosting us today, we have Jess Smith, who is co-chair of the Conveyancing Foundation and Operations Director at Convey Law and Convey 365. We also have Sophia Ramzan, Partner and Head of Conveyancing at Watkins Solicitors, Rebecca Gillard, who is a Director at Thomas Legal, Yanthé Richardson, a Principal Director, Anstey and President at CILEX, and last but not least, Sarah Coldicott, a Legal Director at AConveyancing.
Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us as part of this webinar, as part of our National Conveyancing Week. As for all of you incredible women that are in the room with me today, I've been really passionate about bringing this session together, both to highlight you all as the influential and inspirational women that you are, both working within conveyancing and within your larger businesses. Today isn't about just bringing a panel session together. I really want this to be a conversation. I really want to hear your voices, your perspectives. I hope that you can all share your own insights. And most importantly, I think we all just love to hear your own stories. I really hope, that this conversation and bringing you all together can really inspire the thousands of women that work in conveyancing. Women actually represent over 70% of the profession. And I'd also really like to inspire those that have yet to join us and just show them how amazing a career in conveyancing can be. Without further ado, I think we better jump right in. Sophia, so lovely to have you as part of it here today. We've had a good few years together, working together, haven't we, at Convey Law? Yeah. We were both directors there together. I've been really inspired to see your work and how you've moved into your new role at Watkins Solicitors, both as a partner and you're working as head of conveyancing. I think it's also worth mentioning that you were also a finalist for Female Trailblazer at the Modern Law Conference at the end of last year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think one of the main questions I was thinking I would love to ask you is, what inspired you to kind of start your career in conveyancing? And, when you did start, did you always see yourself in a leadership role?
I think for me, I was initially drawn to conveyancing to sort of help people navigate through important life events, such as obviously buying their first home. I didn't really know what conveyancing was when I started my law degree, but I think I just sort of fell into it. I wanted to buy my first home. I didn't know where to start, and then obviously I was speaking to a conveyancer and I just sort of fell into it. It's all about sort of attention detail and problem solving and sort of making a difference to sort of clients' lives. I didn't envisage going into a leadership role. I sort of just again fell into it. My main focus was sort of focusing on my skills of being, the best conveyancer I could be. But I think as I grew within my roles from a conveyancer to a senior conveyancer and a trainer, you sort of naturally develop those sort of mentorship skills where you can help others as well. So yeah, that's how I fell into it. But no, I didn't see myself going into a leadership role.
Was there kind of any kind of key defining times, in your journey, in your career that kind of really changed that for you? Or is there any kind of really important people that kind of helped you on that journey?
As you're working within sort of your career, you sort of go into more sort of senior roles. I went from a junior conveyancer into a senior conveyancer role. I had my own team, and you naturally sort of become that sort of mentor where you're helping other people. And I think you then begin to sort of develop aspirations to sort of lead and develop and sort of mentor a team. I was sort of, I got put from a conveyancer role into a training role, which I think was good for me because I do sort of like training people as well. So I think that was a key difference and sort of a key sort of influence in my life was going into that training field.
Mm. And I think that's always been, I know when we worked together, I know that you really enjoyed that mentoring and training. Yeah. And, I think that mentoring in particular can have like quite a real important, role within a law firm, but also in a lot of people's lives. I've recently joined a mentoring program myself and I've really enjoyed it. Have you had any key mentors yourself in your journey?
I think I have. With sort of myself, I've been lucky to work with prominent figures in the conveyancing industry. Obviously, Lloyd, one of them. Lloyd was a key figure, and I think it's important to sort of find that support network and that mentorship group who can sort of help you develop your careers as well. And that's something which we should be doing now to sort of support the younger conveyancing professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question for you, Beck. Is that something that you do within your role? Obviously, you've been a director at Thomas Legal, which just seems like a very big responsibility. I had a bit of a deep dive on you, if you don't mind. I know that you're working very much within, like, high net worth estates, the land and the agricultural team, and you've had over 12 years at Thomas Legal. I'd love to know more about, you and your kind of role, and, do you do mentoring within your organisation?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, our people are our biggest and strongest asset in any organisation, and really for us, it's really, really important that we develop everyone to achieve what they want to achieve. I'm very fortunate that I did come into this business as the person that was setting up the files and doing the ID checks and all of the initial onboarding staging to now being able to sit in a director role and being able to kind of influence and have a little bit more of a strategic input. So I think really, hopefully, that demonstrates the approach that we take at Thomas Legal, but also very much that we learn from the people around us. And then also we share that knowledge on as well with the next generations that come through and follow us. So we take that really importantly here.
I'd love to know more of your story. As I was doing a deep dive into the ladies and all of you in this room, I'll be honest, I really struggled to find a lot about you in your profile, and whether that's by design or whether that's a reflection of just how busy you are in your role. So I'd love to know more about your story, and maybe if you wouldn't mind sharing, some big career milestones and what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So from my perspective, I came into Thomas Legal in 2013 and started very much genuinely didn't have any appetite to go into conveyancing at that point. But I actually came into the business and really fell in love with the business and also what we do and the client contact that we can have. But because in the beginning, really struggled with confidence. Confidence was a really big thing for me that really needed to be nurtured and developed, as we have. And for me personally, I had a hearing impairment and I kind of lacked confidence around that and how that would impact me in my career. And actually if we talk about mentors, I had a mentor that really instilled confidence and supported me along every single way and worked through some of the challenges as well. And that was absolutely influential for me, and in terms of being then able to see myself in a more senior position within the company, I was given that platform and I was given that opportunity to see that for myself. So I've been incredibly fortunate with the people that I've had around me here, and the leadership team are really kind of open to supporting and helping people and developing people, and that's what's been hugely fantastic for me. And then in terms of on a day-to-day basis, what that looks like is I'm still very much transactional, but also trying to work with our teams as well to make sure that our teams are as happy and kind of engaged and inspired, and also there for technical support as well. So it's been an all-encompassing role for me here.
Would you mind sharing, if you're willing to share, the name of your mentor? It sounds like they had a really important, impact on you in a life, and at a time that maybe you were a bit struggling. I'd love to know more about, what they were doing for you and how that helped you day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it was a confidence point of, very much working hard and being very diligent behind the scenes, but actually backing myself that what I was doing was right and that you could help and benefit other people. What did they do? I think for me, they showed up and they just genuinely supported me, were there for me at every kind of different juncture as the challenges came up. So there's not kind of one big light bulb moment where they go, this is what we did and this is how we influenced me. But it was every day, it was being that support. And I think that ability, reassuring somebody, giving them confidence, giving constructive feedback as well when it's, we actually need to make some changes. I was very, very fortunate to have that. And I feel like it's a combination of all those different factors which have really helped me get to where I am today.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing with us. That's really great to hear. Yanthé, I hope you don't mind. I'd love to move to you next if you can. I think you've got quite the CV. Both principal director at Anstey and president of CILEX. It's been great to kind of hear a lot about, I've read a lot about your story online. You've spoken about before about, you didn't actually think that being a lawyer was something that you wanted to do. My first question, I'd love to know what was it as a child that you wanted to do if you didn't want to be a lawyer?
Oh gosh, okay. Well, 13-year-old me was dead set on going to dance college. I was going to be a professional dancer, which would make anyone that can see me now laugh quite a lot, because I don't look anything like a professional dancer anymore. But when I was a kid, it was all about the ballet and the stage. So that was the main thing. Actually, as I was older and as I was coming up to GCSEs and thinking about A-levels, which I actually didn't do in the end, I was very much set on politics and economics, which is a very different end of the spectrum to dance. But I've always been a bit unbalanced in that way.
I love it, and I think that's so funny that you then got into law. I obviously read previously that you actually moved into family law was kind of your first areas of law.
Yeah.
And then you moved into new build at Anstey. Like what was that journey like? What was going on in your life at that time?
Well, so I did a lot of so I trained in a legal aid practice, which I think is actually quite formative, actually, for anyone that has an opportunity to do any work in that area. The people skills that you build in that kind of practice are unreal. If you can have difficult conversations with someone in the cells of a Crown Court, or somebody who's potentially in a really difficult position around things like care proceedings for a child, you can probably have any difficult conversation with someone whose property isn't going to complete next week. So there are definite benefits to having a different kind of background and then coming into this area of law. I qualified into family because my boss was sponsoring my qualification, and that's what he wanted me to do, so that's what I did. But I kind of knew at the time that probably family wasn't for me long term. And during my training, I had the one area of the firm that I trained in which wasn't legal aid was conveyancing, and it was in that kind of period of time, 2003 to 2007-ish, when there was just a huge the market was mad. We were in on Saturdays. There were three of us supporting one legal exec at the time. It was bonkers, and we worked at such a pace. And I really, really enjoyed that kind of thrill of getting something over the line in the time frame that it needed to be done. And also at that time, in the town that I was in, where I grew up, there were a couple of new build developments where we were recommended conveyancers, and so I got a bit of a taste for what that kind of transactional work was like, especially on new build, where you were looking at 28-day exchanges all the time, etc. So the reason I ended up going back into conveyancing was at the time that I was leaving London, it was an opportunity to think about where I might go and what I might now do. And I thought, actually, I think this is my moment to go back into something that I think I'm going to enjoy more longer term than family work. And I just happened to, it's a bit right place, right time to some extent, although I do believe we make our own luck as well. A bit right time, right place, and that I happened to stumble across a new build role at Anstey, and they were willing to give me a chance, having not been in conveyancing for a number of years, coming into their new build team. And, the rest is history, really, for me.
Well, it seems like it was definitely the right move for you. It seemed like, I think if we're talking about maybe like pivotal life moments and what happened and what was those stepping stones, it feels like, certainly that role in Anstey, and I'm sure a lot of it comes down to your own work and your own merit and, what you were doing, but it sounds like they also looked like the kind of organisation that really kind of propelled you forward and gave you those opportunities. Would you agree? Yeah,
absolutely. I think that was life-changing for me. And I also think that the firm as a whole are excellent at pushing you on if you want to be pushed on, basically. And so I've definitely benefited from having a really structured career framework, mentors, as Beck mentioned earlier. And actually, really importantly, I think that conversation moves on to sponsorship and the true meaning of sponsorship. So you've got mentoring and you've got sponsors. And I've been really, really lucky to benefit from people that will do both for me.
Can you tell us more about the difference between what is the difference between a mentor and a sponsor?
I think, well, for me, and I think it's probably different for everybody, but for me, a mentor is somebody that will share advice or coach to some extent, although I think probably the experts in this would also say there's a difference between coaching and mentoring. I'm not an expert, but in my personal experience, having a mentor meant that there was someone that I could go to. There was never a silly question. It was someone that would maybe make suggestions as to how you could improve and move on, or what you might look to focus on. Sponsorship in turn is someone that will be it's that kind of classic meme that you might see flying around these days of someone that will talk about you when you're not in the room yourself, someone that will be your advocate and tell others about what you're achieving for you, and be someone that will be quite loud in there and willing to put themselves on the line, because it's their reputation too, in backing you. And I've really benefited from that in my current role.
I love that. And to be fair, I think certainly within, I don't know whether you all agree, but I think that, we love those ideas of kind of mentoring. And I think that, particularly within our organizations, you kind of see it. And I know there's a number of programs around where, I've currently recently joined one with women in residential property, trying to put a mentoring program together. And I really enjoyed that process. But it sounds like sponsorship is that one step further. Yeah. And I wouldn't say, and I don't know whether anyone else agrees with me, but I wouldn't say that I felt that a lot of the time. I think there's certain women or, men or, people that I've met along the way in my life that we've really connected on a personal level. And they've, as you said, they've almost become that champion for you when you're not in the room. But I wouldn't say that we do it outwardly. I think that, Sarah, it's one of the things I love about you and your LinkedIn is that, you really love to empower the people around you and really call them out and say, what an amazing thing, and really kind of lift people up. But I wouldn't say that we do it, across the board. What's your experience with this and the concept of sponsoring?
Yeah, so I think in my life, when I used to work at a high street firm, and I had a brilliant mentor in a lady called Judith. She's a really old school lawyer, but I found with her, she had real empathy for people. So I never felt like she was my boss, and she was always behind me, wanting me to grow. She challenged me. She taught me so much about conveyancing, so I'm forever grateful to her. But what I loved about her was, I had a lot of health issues along the way, and she was always behind me. I never felt like I was a burden to a company or anything like that. And I looked at her as such a strong, empowering woman, and I knew I wanted to be the same as that. And the one thing I find in conveyancing, particularly on LinkedIn, as you've just said, it just seems to be a platform for bashing each other all the time. And I've actually come off LinkedIn before because I just found it such a negative environment. And I got to the point, I thought, why are we doing this to each other? We're all in the same position. And if I can use that platform to call out people that, I've met on a transaction, or that I work directly with, or someone I don't know personally, but I've heard great things about them, then I would much rather use that platform for the greater good, because conveyancing is such a negative place at the moment, and it really doesn't need to be. People are constantly saying we want conveyancing and agents to work better together, but conveyancers are going at each other on LinkedIn. So how are we ever going to get on with other people if we can't get on with each other? And I just think for us as women as well, we should be empowering one another, because there has always been such a thing in our industry. I think that it's always been male dominated, and I mean, going forward, especially the company I work for, AConveyancing, we are predominantly women, and we're just as good as men, aren't we? So we need to all back each other. And I think just with conveyancing generally, I think we should be really looking at the positives of it. It is a great industry to be in. As one of the earlier speakers said, we're here to change people's lives, help them move into their new homes. It could be their dream home, their first home, their last home, but we can't do it if we're all negative with one another. I just think, we need to start now having people look up to us and I want to be that next person that empowers somebody else. I don't want to be known as somebody that's just online bashing others. We need to be really, really empowering each other.
Absolutely. And it's the one part I've loved in particular, hearing your journey. I think that it's been great, the voice that you've given. And I think that, the impact you have in being such a positive force in what can be a very negative space. I think as well that depending, I don't know whether any of you ladies are all still very much frontline, are you still running files? Are you on the cold face? Or whether you've stepped back a little bit and, you're kind of managing teams. But I find that it's particularly those people that are on the coalface that are really experiencing that negativity, which is no doubt in their day. And I really sympathise with conveyancers, particularly around, we've got STLT deadlines coming up, which will only be in a couple of weeks' time. And I think there's so much negativity, and it's almost like LinkedIn's become that ranting space. And I think that I completely agree with you, is that it's also been, I think we can all have a rant, and there's been some really hilarious posts at times as well, where we really I think people can relate to them, but I think that when we start bashing each other in a negative way, all it does is that other people, looking into the industry thinking, why would I ever want to be working there? Is that really a place for, that I want to build a career? And I completely agree with you, Sarah. And that's what I've loved about your profile, is like how you've really changed that narrative, and someone who is still working in conveyancing, who is no doubt still running files and is on the cold face, and and your experiences and how you can turn that really positively. And to be fair, you're also really real as well.
I'm actively running files, and I'd love to have the time to sit and make these lengthy posts ranting, but I don't have the time, so I don't know where anyone finds it.
And I like, to be fair, and you've had quite the incredible year yourself, haven't you? Both being made legal director at AConveyancing, award-winning AConveyancing. You guys are up for every single award there is within the profession at the moment. And I was so pleased to be there on the night at the Modern Law Awards at the end of last year when you won Outstanding Employee of the Year for 2024. So congratulations. I think that's quite the achievement. But I think you also use your platform, that you're very real, about your own struggles. I know that you posted recently about being a mum of two, a wife, even a dog mum, and how you've struggled to kind of find like the me time and being able to kind of make that commitment to yourself. So I guess my question to you is that I think we all know that balancing personal and professional commitments is really difficult, but what have you put in place like in your life to kind of help maintain that healthy like work-life balance?
So I possibly don't have one, and that's the problem. So my life is a bit chaotic because my husband's in the military, so I actually live in an area which is predominantly military based. So I'm permanently working from home. So, I'm away from family, my support system of friends. So pretty much everything happens in this house. I work in the house, I live in the house. My husband's away a lot. So I am pretty much, I think I said in the post, I've got a little bit of single mum life with the benefit of a husband, but it is like being a single mum all the time. And so I have had to learn how to be strict with myself in that, I have to do all of my mum things first. Obviously, that's my main priority. But the fact that I've got my computer in the office in my house, I have got that whole, I could just log back on for an hour or so, and then it turns into 3 hours. So I do need to learn to manage my time. And I think my post was pretty much asking people for advice as to how they do it. But I also see it as a bit of a benefit. So, clients generally, a lot of them work a 9 to 5, so can't speak to me during the day. So I can offer those out of hours appointments at a time to suit. If I know I need to knuckle down and get a report done and there's no way I can get it done within the day, I can do that on the evening. So it's a bit of a hit and miss for me. There is obviously the benefits of being at home and being able to manage my own time and work out of hours if I want, but there is that, I'm going to jump on for an hour and then 4 or 5 hours later I'm still here, and then I'm in massive trouble with my husband because I haven't watched Netflix with him or something like that. But it is really difficult. It is difficult, but it's great to have. That's where I do think LinkedIn is a good platform for getting that advice from other people that are in the same position as you. Because a lot of people are working mums, and it's really hard to find that time for yourself. Your identity is being a mum and being a conveyancer, but where is that time for yourself? And that's something I definitely struggle with, and I'm trying to find more of a balance between.
Yanthé, do you have anything else to add? I know that you also have very much spoken about it in the past, about how you find the balance, both particularly, I'm sure, within your role with Anstey new build team is no doubt full of pressure anyway, and in CILEX as well. How do you find the balance in it all?
Oh, honestly, I'm the worst person to talk to about this. So I'm not a good example, guys. I've got a full-time job, a side gig. I'm a single parent. I'm attempting to be some sort of good sister, daughter, friend, clean a house, keep healthy. I mean, it's literally impossible to do all of those things at once and do them all well. I probably don't have any golden nuggets. I suppose what I would say is, for me this year, some of those things have had to drop a little bit because I am trying to do 2 jobs and be a parent as well. That's only until July, and there's a reason that we only have year-long terms in these office holder roles because you might lose your mind if you try and do it for much longer. But it's also an incredible opportunity. So there was no way I was going to pass it up, but also, I want to make the most of having this opportunity in front of me to be able to talk about things like vocational routes to qualification and their importance, particularly for women. For CILEX, 78% of our membership are female. I think that's strongly correlated to it being a properly vocational route to qualification, which you can do around life. So there was no way I was going to pass up an opportunity to be really loud about that. but I just had to recognise that might mean that some of my friends I need to probably give them some time, July, August of this year, and make up for some times when I've not been so available. But I do think, priorities are essential. So the only thing I can say is, beginning of every day, it's figuring out which of the things that I absolutely have to get done today, and which of the things are potentially things that I could delegate, or which of the things are actually not important and not urgent, and therefore why are they on my list at all. You have to be a bit cutthroat at times, a bit cutthroat. And to anyone I owe an email to that's watching this, I'm really sorry.
I think we've all been there, Yanthé, don't worry. We all struggle with that.
Yeah, I'll get back to you on the 18th of July is the headline.
I find that it's like, I don't know whether you're all the same. It's like, you kind of booking time in your diary and someone's like, can I meet with you, in 3 days time? And I'll see you in 3 months.
Yeah. At this point, I just say to people, you look at my diary. If you can find a slot, you go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah, but I have to say, somebody mentioned this earlier. I'm in my day job position is one of leadership now. So I'm not on the coalface running my own caseload anymore. I don't think I could have done the juggle I'm doing this year if I were, but I do also then run 2 quite big teams with 2 very big fee targets, and all the responsibility for strategic oversight, technical oversight, risk things, BD, bringing in the new work. So it's a very different role in that I've not got clients expecting to hear from me all day, every day, but there is also a big responsibility around things like people leadership. And I think it was Beck mentioned earlier around, your people are your biggest asset, and being able to give them the time they need. And as we were saying earlier, Jess, the mentoring, the coaching, the sponsorship, that's all a huge part of my role. So being available for people is something that I find it really hard when I can't be. To what Sarah was saying, if you can't be available for the people you need to be available for, that can leave you feeling really quite guilty. So the juggle is real is the headline, I think, and I don't think anyone's got a magic answer to that.
Not yet anyway. We are trying. AI is doing its best. Can we clone ourselves? I think we're putting all this time into AI technology. I'm pretty sure cloning is probably the way to go, I reckon, instead.
That would be nice.
I think. I'm gonna change the topic ever so slightly, if we don't mind. And there's a couple of big questions that I was kind of asking, and I'd love all of your insight and opinion on it. But Sophia, I'm probably going to ask you first, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
It's a big question, and I think it could go in any one direction, but I'd love to know what you think. What change do you think that you would like to influence within the profession in your career?
I think, obviously talking about sort of AI as well, I think, the future is moving to sort of technology and different sort of forms of technology. I think the change I'd sort of like to see is within the sort of career is less negative, like Sarah said as well. But I think with the high pressured sort of job that we are in and the challenging industry, sort of the focus on bringing in this sort of AI, the technology, I think it's going to streamline the process a lot more. I think it's going to help client service better as well. Documents will be managed differently. The way documents are produced are going to be managed differently as well. So I would like to see conveyancing going into AI, which I think it is. I don't know if the rest of you agree with me, but what I saw at the recent Conveyancing Association conference, if any of you were there, I was really impressed by that. So yeah, I think going into technology and moving more into the sort of AI side of it, I think is going to make a huge difference into conveyancing. And even so, I think it's going to reduce transactional timelines as well more.
What do you think, Beck? You guys, particularly at Thomas Legal, I know that, you're really big into, client service and kind of making sure that the client is at the forefront of what you guys do. And, I know that you guys have been expanding, you've been going from strength to strength. Do you agree with Sophia? Do you see that a change or the evolution of conveyancing is AI, or, is it something different for you?
I think it's a bit of everything. I think technology and AI definitely has a part to play, and we've got to move with the times. But I think we've also got to recognise the additional obligations that seem to be being placed on conveyancers all the time. Whether it be we talk about a BSA or climate change, things like that, which are just increasing the remit of things that fall under conveyancing, which perhaps never formed part of that before. So I think it's about perhaps getting a little bit more of a greater handle on exactly what falls under the conveyancer's remit. And then, dare I say, it's managing expectations collectively as an industry as well, so that everyone is aware of actually what needs to be done, why it needs to be done, and it's all working together to make sure that we achieve that. So I think for me, it's not one solution. I think it's quite a few different things that have got to come into play. And the other thing I'd like to add is positivity and kind of the way that we all interact with each other. And I'd love to see us kind of get away from a blame game culture of, in terms of, you've had the replies to inquiries, etc., and just let us all say, look, we know we've all got a job to do. How can we get through this in the most efficient way, but also that, understanding that we've all got a client to protect, and making sure that we follow all the steps as we need to do.
I don't know whether you agree with me, Beck, but I found that whilst there has been quite a lot of negativity, and I think we've addressed that, but actually if you look at it on the other side of the coin, I think that conveyancers are also being the most collaborative that I think that they've probably ever been before, and I think that whether that's through I think as understanding and all of us accepting that there are challenges within the profession, there are challenges and the pressures on us are increasing, but actually I think that's also really banded a lot of people together as well, to kind of say, actually we are in this boat together, and how can we work together? How can we empower each other? How can we be positive? How can we change the narrative? And I'd like to think that as time's going on, and I've been thinking about it this year, but I think that call for kind of that positivity, collaboration, supporting each other, that call to action seems to be getting louder and the negativity is getting quieter.
Yeah, I think actually a big thing for me is actually picking up the phone and speaking to other lawyers and other people engaged in the process, because I think we've all got so many emails to get through every single day that we're all just kind of firing them off left, right and centre. But actually, if you pick up the phone, you can really have some really kind of helpful conversations. You can understand where other people are coming from. So, I agree with you, but I think sometimes, especially, stamp duty deadlines are a great example of it, where we've all got so many different pressures on it. And I think we probably all have a responsibility to make sure that we, try and maintain that positivity and the collaboration as far as we can, because I think it's going to be a challenging, time with things like stamp duty, and no doubt there'll be other deadlines in the future that we'll have to work our way through.
Changing world of conveyancing, right? We think we've overcome one hurdle and there's always another one over the next one. If anything else, it does certainly make us all adaptable. I think if nothing else, we're always ready for a challenge and willing to take it on, right?
Absolutely.
Sarah, I've got a question for you, if you wouldn't mind. I think one of the main points as well that I really wanted to highlight as part of this session is that we are all within a certain demographic in terms of age. All of us in this room are under the age of 40, but that's not necessarily always reflective of kind of what we see within, boards or partnerships, across the industry. And I'll be honest, I've put a number of events together. I worked at some very big events before, both within this industry and out. And this panel, it was actually one of the most difficult to kind of bring together. I knew of all of you, but actually, if I was thinking about, expanding this further, I think I would have really struggled. And I'm not going to lie, I even reached out to a couple of my really close kind of industry friends that I find are really influential to me. And I know that, they're really inspiring women. And I've said to them, can you share with me any names of people that you've come across, young women that are doing really great things. They don't have to be directors or partners, but, they have influence. And I'll be honest, I think besides one name, they all really struggled. And it's been really interesting to kind of go on this journey and see, how that's kind of formed and how that's changed. So I guess my question to you is, what role do you think young leaders, women leaders will play in the future of conveyancing?
I think it's really important for something like today to actually get out there and have people hear our stories. So, I mean, for AConveyancing, as an example, we obviously have had an apprenticeship scheme. So we are bringing on people that have just left school and they're coming straight onto an apprenticeship scheme to eventually look at being a conveyancer. And, we sit and speak to them and open their eyes to the world of law and help them understand that there isn't just a standard pathway into this career anymore. So for myself, I started out as an office junior and I'm still working through my licensed conveyancer qualification, but I've made it to legal director. So for me to be able to sit with the younger girls that are coming in specifically and say, and to my own daughter, it's not all about going to university anymore. There's so many different pathways into any career, but specifically law, if you can find a company that will encourage you to start from the bottom and work your way up, then that's fantastic. Like it's not all about going to university anymore. And I think AConveyancing definitely do it as a company, and I'm sure there's a lot of other companies out there that do it. But just to sit and speak to the younger generation about your story just opens their eyes so much to a world where they don't have to have the best qualifications, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to be great and they're not destined for greatness. But I think it's so important that, you know, this platform today and for the future, to have those conversations with people, maybe go into schools and have these conversations and actually build people's confidence from the get-go. Like, they can do anything they want to do in the world, but having people backing them is so, so important. And I think that's just, you know, worldwide. It doesn't have to necessarily be just down to conveyancing, but the obligation is on us to really, really back people. And it comes back to the mentoring and the sponsorship that Yanthé mentioned earlier. And that will, I think, pave the way for the future of conveyancing. You know, we've got so many young people that are thirsty to do something and do something great, and there's no reason why they can't do that in the conveyancing industry.
Full of opportunities, I think, certainly. And it's really interesting, like, hearing all of your own stories. You know, Sophia, I'd love to hear more about yours. You know, like, what was your journey into law in that way? You know, did you start off just like everyone else, you know, kind of working your way up from the bottom?
I was just going to say what Sarah said. I said, obviously, for us, I followed the traditional route. I went and did my law degree. I did the CILEX then. But like Sarah said, you don't have to go to university to actually progress within your career or fall into a career and obviously work your way up the rankings. There's so many different routes of qualification now. You can do your CILEX, you can go for the CLC route, or there's internal training programs within a company who will sort of sponsor you and sort of help you develop your career. So obviously with myself, I completed my law degree. I then went on to complete CILEX and graduated through CILEX. I then obtained my dual qualification as a licensed conveyancer. So I've got dual qualification. But I started off, like Sarah, in a junior role, progressed as a conveyancer, went into it as a senior conveyancer, and then I became a trainer and then a training director at Convey Law, and then I moved over then to Watkins Solicitors. So as long as you've got the support of the company that you work for, and there are internal mentorship programs and training programs, you will find that sort of support and you will be able to develop your careers. And I think advice that I would give to people who are looking to progress their careers is to take ownership of your own career, because it's your own personal and professional journey. And if you really want to sort of progress into a senior role, then, you do need to take ownership of your own career and find those opportunities.
Fabulous. Beck, what advice would you give, similar people, young women looking to kind of progress into those senior roles? What advice would you give them?
Success is not linear, in that we all kind of get stuck up a little bit in terms of the difficult deal, the difficult days, and just trying to step away occasionally and see the bigger picture and how everything is coming together. So that would be my advice sometimes, to just step back, see how far you've come, and not try and take any kind of knockbacks or anything that come along the way too hard, because there will be challenges, and it's just about how you react to them as you look to kind of grow and move forward.
Thank you so much for sharing. I've got one final question that's for everyone to answer in their own right, just to finish this off. It's a bit of a thing. If anyone's on Instagram at the moment, it's a bit of a thing that is kind of in trend at the moment, where a lot of people are kind of looking at themselves. So if you met your younger self for coffee, what would you tell her?
So I think I would just say, believe in yourself and your cause. The only person that's stopping you from achieving what you want to achieve is yourself. And as long as you have confidence in yourself and you back yourself, there is absolutely nothing you can't do. Surround yourself with good people, and 100% you can get wherever you want to be. And I would certainly say that to myself, because I didn't think that when I was just leaving school, or, I became a single mom at quite a young age, and I definitely didn't have the confidence then. So if I could sit and say to myself then, this is where you're going to end up in 20 years' time, then, I definitely encourage people just to have that confidence in themselves, because life changes and, we all change, but things happen for a reason. And, as long as you back yourself, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve.
Yanthé, would yours be not to get into family law?
No, it wasn't, because actually I think everything you go through shapes you, and like I said earlier about the legal aid stuff, it makes you who you are, it gives you the skills you've got. What would I say? I think I would say, actually, what I would say is something that was said to me by somebody else when I was probably about that age, actually, which was, you can be the best technical lawyer ever, but if you're not an operator, if you're not someone that makes things happen, does what you say you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and really importantly learns how to bring in new work, you're not going to get to the higher levels. Come from the ability to bring new work, ability to network, to build up the people around you. And I think one of the reasons that women in particular are so good at this is because we're good at, well, I was going to say we're good at talking, but obviously, clearly, we're good at talking to other people, and we're good at building relationships with other people. And actually, if you can't, that's the bit that beyond the technical, which you've got to be great at, but beyond that, the best advice I've ever had is to learn how to network and bring in new work and be good at business development.
Building rapport is a real skill, isn't it? And it's great that a lot of women have it. And I think you're totally right. I think that's why you can be really, really successful in this kind of career and working in conveyancing.
Yeah.
Beck, how about you? What would you tell your younger self?
I think I would actually kind of try to say worry less, because I think for me it was a case of your perceived weaknesses that actually become something that becomes your biggest strength. So I mentioned earlier that the hearing impairment, that is something I really worried about how it would affect my career, and I actually used it and turned it around to become a real strength. And that now, if I'm it very much means if I'm listening, I'm listening and I'm locked into that conversation and I get as much out of it as I can. And kind of the approach that I've taken in terms of how I speak with people on the phone as a consequence, it's been something that's really helped me. So actually, perhaps not always worrying so much, and actually just continuing to just try and work as hard as you can, and things usually turn out well.
Great message for everyone, really, isn't it? You know, taking those weaknesses and turning them into strengths, and that's great. And you're totally right. I think we're very, very keen to talk and not also so keen to listen, and that's a great thing for everyone to share. You know, that's fantastic. How about you, Sophia?
I think for me, it would be probably being more sort of learning how to be more self-compassionate. I think we all get stuck into this pursuit of sort of finding perfection and success, but I think we also need to acknowledge that there will be setbacks in life as well, and we need to sort of be kind to ourselves and just learn from those mistakes, because they don't, cave the sort of pathway to success. So always just be kind and acknowledge that there will be setbacks on that journey that you're on.
Thank you so much for sharing, ladies. I really appreciate it. I found it really inspiring today, hearing from you all and learning about your stories. I feel like I probably have to contribute because I'm part of this, of what I would. But younger me was sat on a beach living her best life in Australia. So I think the first thing I'd say to her is, yes, the weather in the UK is just as bad as everyone tells you that it is. But I was someone that I think, and I still am at times, you know, I very deeply care about what others think of me still. I'm kind of on that journey a little bit at the moment of finding who I am and my voice. And I think I'd say to myself is, you know, spend more time surrounding yourself with, you know, women and people that really kind of want to see you win. You know, I think that you're very much the product of your environment and the people that you're around. And I think if I spent more time, you know, that I've now learnt, you know, as being surrounded by really inspirational women like you all are, you know, I think that I'd really like to share that both with myself and probably everyone else as well within the room that's here with us today. Well, ladies, that wraps us up for the session today. I obviously want to say thank you so much for being really transparent, you know, sharing your journeys, your stories with us. I know it's sometimes a bit daunting, like sharing your personal story, and I think we're all very professional, aren't we, at times, and sharing those personal things. And Beck, I loved hearing about, you know, your challenges as well. I think I've found that really touched me personally. And Sarah, I think just how you word your challenges and just how you're so honest about them, and they're really relatable. I thought that was just really inspiring as well. So thank you all. As I said, I found you all either through LinkedIn or through the connections we had. So you're clearly doing great things. You know, people can clearly find you. I found you. So I think the only thing I'd say is that, like, please use your platforms and your voices to kind of share this message with people. Because I think there's a lot of young women, and I found it when I joined conveyancing. I was made a director at 24, and even though I'm not from a conveyancing background, I would have loved to have had a group of women or women like yourselves that I knew at that time to be like, God, I just love to have someone that I could have as a mentor or someone that I aspire to be. And I think it's only in more recent years, I think people are doing more, and I think that you'll be surprised who you'll inspire, and who will be watching even when they don't tell you that they're watching of what you're doing. So thank you for being here. Thank you for taking part. I think I found it really inspiring personally. I think it's great that we've been able to have this platform today as part of National Conveyancing Week, and really showcase what the opportunities are for women and young women, under 40 and even less. I think you've all done some incredible things at such a young age, and hopefully this inspires a whole new generation of female conveyancers to come and join us. We've obviously got quite a bit more going on for the rest of the week. We've got collaboration coffee mornings going on with National Conveyancing Week tomorrow, and a fun Friday fundraising quiz on Friday. So hopefully, ladies, you'll all be joining us. We've got some really great things going on, and thanks so much for joining us today and showing your support for National Conveyancing Week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us. Thank you.